Alright, so welcome back. So we're going to just go over kind of channel box, layer editor, all the attribute editor, everything that's kind of over to the right hand side. And you'll see that these buttons up above right here, this will show and hide the modeling toolkit. So if you don't want that menu to be available, you can just uncheck that or unmark that. And then also this is the character control window, which is based off of human IK. I don't use this fairly often, but that's where you find that. This is where you show the attribute, show and hide the attribute editor. And then this is the tool settings, so toggling tool settings on and off. And then this toggles the channel box on and off as well. So, and usually the layer editor is associated with the channel box. It's usually right underneath the channel box. And so you'll see in, there's some options inside the channels of the channel box. So you can key selected items, key all keyable. You can do breakdown keys. You can mute channels. You can also cut and copy, paste and delete. You can also freeze all your different translate, rotate, scale, or all. You can also break connections. If you have any animation keys or any connection, you can basically break that connection with this. You can also select your connection. You can lock selected, unlock selected. So say we don't want anybody to touch the translates. We would select all three translates and we would right click and go to lock selected. You'll see that this now has a gray box by the side of it, and so what that does now, if we tried to move, you'll see that this is grayed out and we can no longer move that item. To actually go and get that back, we can just go and unlock selected. You can also say you don't want rotates to show up at all, you can actually just hide selected, okay, and that makes it go away. To actually bring it back to the channel box, we would need to go to Windows, General Editors, Channel Control, and then we would go back to, we would look for Rotate. So Rotate, yes, keyable, let's see, we want rotate X, Y, and Z. We want to move that to the left and then close that, and then that brings them back. Okay, you can also lock and hide selected, which actually locks it and and hides it. And then also if there's I think what we had already gone through, adding attributes and whatnot. So if you want to add additional attributes for that, this is where the shape node and also our inputs is located for our sphere. So if we make any adjustments here, the layer editor is basically a place where we can I'll just demo and we'll talk through it. So say we want all of our meshes to be on a layer. If we go to layer and we say, if we created an empty layer, that's basically just going to place an empty layer, so we can't do really anything. We have to have those objects be a part of the layer. So we create a layer from selected. So that makes this layer 2. So if you double click on this, you'll get the edit layer window to come up, and then we can say mesh or meshes, mesh objects, however you want that to be, and we'll keep it as normal. But template, I'll show what template is and what reference means as well, and also we'll keep the visibility turned on. And then the color, I don't put any color on it because I just want that to be normal. But if you wanted to change the color of that, here's where you can do so. So if I turn this pink, you'll see now that these objects are now pink. So one way to show that is to, if I go reference, and I also have to turn on wireframe unshaded and turn X-ray off. So this should be not sure why I'm not seeing. Oh, because that's right, because the object has to be live. Not live, but actually not referenced. So template actually just basically shows a template version. R is basically, you can see the mesh, and it actually is unselectable. So it just basically shows the object in the scene, and then once that's off, if this is blank, you can actually access and tweak to your heart's content. For this, I just want to change this back to none and save. Then this goes back to the regular default color. And then also, since this is in its own layer, if I hit the V key, or the V button, it's V for visibility. And then the P is for playback. I believe that's what that is under playback. And so we want to be able to see that in the playback. So this layer, to delete, you can just select the layer and say delete layers. And then also you can move objects up and down in the layer window. This will create a new layer. This is a blank layer, and then this is create a new layer from assigned selected objects. So say I wanted the sphere in its own, I could just come here and name this sphere and then save, and you'll see that sphere is on its own layer now. And then say I want to just reference that layer, which is the plane, so you'll see that now I can basically I can select around on the sphere but still have the plane in view. So that's kind of how that works. So if I select both of these and delete them, delete layer, so now everything goes back to defaults how we had it. Okay, attribute editor is basically this is kind of how we see our objects, and we can tweak them, like our transforms, pivots, anything like that. You can do that from this top node. This is going to be the shape node, and kind of how you can actually tweak some of those, tweak some of these items. Display vertices. You can bump up the vertex size. You can do a lot of the different things on the shape node. And then this is where, so if we wanted to bump up the radius on the polysphere, there's this is almost like an object mode that's part of this as well. And then the initial shading group, whenever you create a new object in Maya, it always throws Lambert 1, which is the basic shader that's basically put on here. So this is just default. It automatically puts, so this one has Lambert 1 as well. So if you ever notice, like, everything is all the same color or something's assigned, you probably have Lambert 1 shader assigned still. So you'll just have to change that in the hypershade. And I can also show you how to add, we'll add some materials as we move along. So with that in mind, that's the attribute editor. And so this is going to be our timeline. Timeline is all animation driven. So if, say, we make this ball just move across, if I go here and add a key selected here, and then 10, I'm going to go here, and that I have my auto keyframe toggle set up. So that actually will actually affect anything that I move after I've set a key. So then here I can just add that, and then you'll see that I have this little jump here. So that's how that works. To get rid of these keyframes, if you double click, and I usually will, the way that I go about doing this is, so select the object, and then if you hold down Shift and left mouse drag and go all the way back to 0, because that's where I want the object to be located, I'm just going to delete, and I just right click on that and delete. And to go back, I can just set this back to 0. Bump this guy. I think this was maybe like 0.4, maybe 0.42. Let's try 0.45. All right, still not. The best way to get this perfect is to go to front view and just take a look and see where that's located. And then we can go back. All right, so timeline has many different options. So cut, copy, paste, all based on keys. This is where you can delete keys, you can snap keys. If you get any frames that are off count, so say it's like 17.57 or something like that, if you scale or do anything like that, sometimes it'll throw it off. The way to snap keys is to actually just grab all the keys and then say snap, and it'll throw them on whole numbers. So that's the way to do that. And this is where you convert to keys, convert to breakdowns. You can add in-betweens and remove in-betweens. This is a really nice for timing purposes. And then also you can set your tangents from the get-go: spline, linear, clamped, stepped, flat, all the auto. Auto is basically like spline. This is where you turn on grease pencil and can do, if you want to draw on the screen, do any actual 2D animation. This is how you use that with grease pencil. There's time slider bookmarks, so you can actually create bookmarks for where you are in your shot. Say 0 to 25 is a run, and then 40 to 60 or 40 to 80 is a walk cycle. You can actually create bookmarks, and then you can kind of cycle through that, and that's where your bookmarks will be here as well. And you can also color them, so it's actually pretty handy to have that as well. So inside here, this is where the cached playback is, and this is, you can flush your caches as well. This is just for speedy, so you can actually see your animation at time and everything. This is where you can go and change your playback speed, also display ticks. You can set your ranges to min, max, selected. So say I go and I just want to work on 40 to 60. I can just right click and say time display or set range to selected, and then so now all I have is 40 to 61. So those are the frames that I would be working on in an animation. That's how you set that up. If you double click, this will go back to your minimum and maximum set scene size, your range, and then sound length, and then also preferences. That's where you set those. Let's see. So you can auto snap keys, which is, I think this is new to 2020. It might not be, but just having those snap keys on is actually good. You just stay on whole numbers. This is where you can import your audio. If you're animating to actual sound, this is where you do that. You can adjust the volume, delete sounds, your waveform display. And then, so playback is just, your play blasts are basic preview animation, and this is where you can actually choose your format and the quality. Also, the display size is from window. You can actually do from render settings, or you can do custom as well. So you can build like, 240 by 240 or whatever, however you see fit, however the size you'd like to see those. So you could say 2048 by 2048 if you wanted to see a big render. And then the scale is actually, it's going to show at 50% of my window size. That's what it'll render down to. And then you can also pad your frames if you need to. This will remove temporary files, and then if you save to file, this opens up this movie file location, and then you can actually browse to the area where you say you have finished video or tweaked video or whatever. This is where you would save that file, and then when you hit play blast, it'll play blast the frames that you have selected. But you can also play blast, say you have this much of the animation that you want to see, you can just play blast that section. And the way I'm doing that is just going to, say, frame 20, holding down shift, and then left dragging to, say, 90 or whatever. And then that's where you would play blast a section of an animation, and then it'll just play that part. So this is going to be start to the playback, top head of the playback, so it's going to go back to 1. So if I'm here on 103, I'm going to go back to 1. This will go step back 1 frame, and then this is step back by keys. So say I have a key on 140, and I have a key on 95 and here. So this button will actually go to keyframes. And that's what this one as well is, going forward to a keyframe. This playback plays rewind time, and then this is forward time, and this will go step 1 frame, and this goes to the end of the frame head. So I'm just going to select all these and delete them because I don't need them right now. And then, so this is the sets the start time of the animation, and this sets the end time of the animation, and this is end time of the playback range. So my animation totally is 200 frames, but currently it's set to end at 150. But I could also start, say, at frame 20, and then that's the current frame range that I'm just working in. I still have a 200 frame animation, but it starts at 1, ends at 200, but I'm working 20 to 150, if that makes sense. So you just want to make sure that you understand that having a complete animation of 200 frames, that's how that's set. I showed bookmarks already. These are based on character sets, so you can just work on, say, a left arm or a right arm, and that's all set in the character set menu. The animation layers, this is actually in the layer menu. You can actually have layered animations. Really fun and super easy to use. Let's see. So if you want to tweak something, but you want to keep your original animation, but you just want to tweak, like, say, a head turn or something, you can just add a layer, and then you can actually add that tweak on top, and then it'll actually just rotate however you do to the change in the layer. You just have to make sure that you put start and end keys. You have to actually, when you create a new animation layer, that's how you would basically set a keyframe before you know you're going to make a change, and then you go to the frame you're going to change, and then you go to the end part. I usually will do a set and an end point, and then I'll do my in-between as the layer, and then that way your animation stays intact. So this is where you change your frames per second. You can change this to 24, how it goes all the way to 2 frames a second, and then all the way to 48,000. So I preferably work at 30 frames a second, especially in video games. Also movies and film is usually shot at 24 frames a second, and then some games 12 frames a second. It's just kind of like what you like to do, like to work in. Video games obviously 30, and I've seen people work at 60 frames a second as well. But I find it easier to just think in the math. The math of 30 is a lot easier. So this is where you set the continuous loop here, and this is the cache playback, which I talked about here as well. Yes, it was under, where's cache playback? There we go, right here. Same thing, right here. It's another button, another way. So this is where sound, this is audio. You can turn down your audio. You can also right click, and this gives you your import audio and all the same stuff here as well. This is just closer. You don't have to go all the way over here. This is going to be your auto keyframe toggle. So if you want to just set a keyframe once and then animate your object, it's easier to use auto keyframe. And then this is where you set your animation preferences. This is basically going to the preferences, but just animation goes directly to it. So this is a fast way to get to your preferences. It automatically goes directly to animation in the time slider. But if there's something else that you want to change, this is a fast way to get to preferences. So this is going to be your Mel command window. If you left click on Mel, you get Python, so you can do Python commands from here as well. This is an output, what actually goes, what shows. So like say if I do this and I move here, if I just translate to, whoops, translate X. Oh, yeah, that's my bad there. So translate X by 2. All right, that's not, my Mel is not amazing by any means, but you can find that stuff out by going to Mel Maya scripting reference, and that'll bring up your help. So if I wanted to say translate command or move, let's say move, but we want to get our Mel commands. So that's not what I was looking for. Actually, if I go to help, Maya scripting Mel command reference, and then that brings my Mel commands up here, and then if I say move, so move, yeah, so I would say move in X. So I believe if I go to, say, move X to, nope, that's not it. So move, and then I'm just showing this as an example. Let's try X2. X. There we go. So that's how you can move from the Mel command as well. So say move and then dash move X, and we say minus 22. It's going to bring us back to negative 22. So if I want that to be 0, I would say move dash move x 0, and that places that right back at 0. So obviously you can do Y and Z that way, and then rotate. I'm assuming is the same thing, but that's how you can enter mail scripts, and then you can also change that to Python. And you also can see this is your output window and what happens after you do a command here. This is where your script editor is located. If you click on that, this is where you get some of that. This is where you can actually do scripting. You can also do your scripts somewhere else. There's all kinds of different viewers for scripts, like Notepad++, or some other people use different ones. And then this is kind of the help line. So that's basically an overall understanding of the Maya user interface, like right from open, and what is possible. Moving forward, we'll continue, and we'll learn about some of our modeling options, some of our animation options, some rigging, some texturing. This will just be like a quick overview. As you continue and start to learn Maya, there's a lot of information available to learn and how to use Maya. This is just kind of a basic overview in learning Maya, and if I can lead you in a right direction and get you using Maya and enjoying Maya, it's a great tool, and I've used it for a very long time, ever since Maya 1 became available after Power Animator, and so I've always been a big supporter of the Maya workflow and what's possible in the software. So next up, we'll go over some modeling and